Super Mario World is the greatest 2D Super Mario game ever made. Which is something of a bold statement considering there's a whole bunch of them out there, and also considering this was the follow-up to Super Mario Bros. 3, often considered to be the pinnacle of Nintendo Entertainment System entertainment software. And yeah, that game has a mighty stake to that claim, although in all honesty, it's not the best version of Super Mario 3 you could be playing. You probably want to dabble in the GBA version. Even with its screen crunch, it's a much better version of Mario 3, but I digress. Super Mario World was the original pack-in title for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which was the new hotness at the time. And as far as first impressions for your newfangled system, Super Mario World provided a nice sampler of what the system could do, with its much more colorful visuals, its much more livelier sounds, some of the zoomy effects, transparencies, and other stuff. But there are other games that does a far better job of showcasing the system's capabilities, and perhaps even going above and beyond what was originally envisioned for the hardware, or whatever hyperbole you want to toss in there. Right now I'm just sticking with the one that opened this video, that Super Mario World is the greatest 2D Super Mario game ever made. Super Mario World ventures away from the familiar trappings of the Mushroom Kingdom to the still somewhat familiar trappings of Dinosaur Island, and the premise of the game is just as familiar. That evil bastard King Koopa has kidnapped the princess yet again, and you have to be a bad enough plumber to save the princess so she can get kidnapped all over again in the next game. This was the height of storytelling in Super Mario, courtesy of Nintendo back in the day, and even today to a certain extent, but whatever. They're trying to change that with the movie, which I haven't seen yet, but yeah. Anyways. Super Mario World can be played with either one or two players, with player 1 controlling Mario and player 2 controlling Luigi, both of whom play the exact same way. The gameplay is typical Mario fare. You run, you jump, you stomp on things, you punch question blocks and stuff come out, eat mushrooms to grow big, eat flowers to shoot fireballs, pick up stars to ram through foes and get a couple 1-ups out of it, collect 100 coins for extra lives, try not to fall into any pits, reach the end of the level before time runs out. Cool. It's old hat, it's stuff you've seen before, and it's stuff you'll see again, and again, and again. But Super Mario World also has a few new tricks up its sleeve. For example, Mario now has a spin jump with the press of the A button. A new move with less height than a typical jump, but is capable of exploding some foes with a single blow, while others will shrug off the attack and cause Mario to bounce, which makes for a fairly useful platforming technique. Whenever Mario collects a second power-up, his current one goes into the reserve box, and whenever Mario takes a hit which downgrades him back to Small Mario, whatever power-up is in the box will fall down and Mario can grab it along the way. Of course, you can always summon the reserve power-up manually with the press of the select button, even when you have already died. Which, yeah, that doesn't work for me, brother. With a venture into a new world comes new gimmicks, and Super Mario World offers several in the form of super feathers, balloons, and animal cruelty. Grab a super feather and Mario scores a cape that allows him to fly for a bit after a running start. And once you've reached the peak of your flight, Mario can manipulate the cape to either glide across the air for a little more hang time, or dive down kamikaze style and make a high impact landing that harms foes. And unlike Raccoon Mario, there's no need to tap that button to maintain flight or float downwards, you just hold the button down instead. And that's what makes Super Mario World a better game, because that's called an improvement. Balloons are a little rarer. You pick one up and you become Balloon Mario, floating simply upwards, slowly, to reach higher ground. This power-up lasts for a limited time or until you take a hit, but only has a couple uses at most. And then there's Yoshi, your new dinosaur friend who claims to need help in saving his buddies, but we all know the real story. He's getting the rub from Mario so that people will know his name and buy his crappy games involving cookies and eggs and all sorts of rubbish. Fortunately, he's not completely useless. If anything, Yoshi is one of the most essential aspects to the overall game. At first, he'll be trapped in an egg and trapped in blocks, and when freed, he'll quickly grow and you could ride on him like a horse. Smack the Y button and Mario will smack Yoshi to lash out the animal's tongue, which can be used to consume fruits and enemies, and this will net you a coin for some reason when swallowed. Eat enough foes and Yoshi will lay an egg, yielding some sort of bonus. Some enemies, however, cannot be gulped up, and some items, such as Koopa shells, are harder for Yoshi to digest, and so he'll hold them in for a short while before swallowing them whole. So you either wait it out, or you do the human thing and let Yoshi spit the creature out to use as an offensive weapon. In the case of Koopa shells, gulping colored shells will usually yield temporary different abilities. Grab a red shell and Yoshi will spit out a trio of fireballs that will burn anything they touch. Grab a blue shell and Yoshi will gain wings, allowing him to fly until he swallows that shell. Grab a yellow shell and painful dust clouds will emit from the ground whenever Yoshi lands. And if Yoshi manages to snag the amazing, invincible, flashing Koopa, he'll gain all these abilities for a short while, so long as he has the shell in his grasp. There are also color-specific Yoshis with specific abilities that come into play whenever they're holding a Koopa shell regardless of color, though these are only found in the Star Road stages. Like I said, Yoshi's a useful asset, and even serves as a dino shield to protect Mario from a hit, although he'll run off in a panic and you'll have to catch him before he runs off a cliff or something. Also, Yoshi will not enter ghost houses and castles because they're scary, but running off a cliff is a-okay. Suddenly, I don't have a problem with dropping him into the abyss for the greater good. He's clearly fine with that sort of thing, of course. You start off on a map screen and a fork in the road. Oh goody, a choice. Do you go left or right? Or do you explore the mysterious house that is seemingly abandoned? Obviously, you want to go right because that's where the castle is, along with the rest of the world that awaits you, but what if you go left? Well, you go left, you clear the level, and you eventually reach a yellow switch palace, which gives you a shit ton of coins, and also a giant yellow switch that will fill all the yellow outlines with yellow blocks, which will guarantee you a mushroom whenever you punch one. They also serve as platforms that you could cross, which can open up possibilities. There are 3 other switch palaces that you'll need to discover for yourself, but you have help here. See them dots on the map? Those are your levels, and they come in 2 colors, yellow and red. Yellow dots have 1 exit while red dots have 2 exits, and each exit leads you down a different path when you reach it. See, there's a main path that you can travel to, but there are also other paths that will diverge from the main path and lead to other things. Like this top secret level that's no longer top secret since everyone knows about this level because this game is over 30 years old for fuck's sake. Since some levels have more than 1 exit and they lead to different paths, you'll have to play some of these levels twice, which means that yes, you can revisit levels, and if you want to exit a level you already cleared without doing the whole rigmarole, you can pause the game and press select to warp back to the map screen. This is useful for going to certain levels where you can farm for power-ups or extra lives repeatedly because those are fairly easy to get in this game. When you reach the goal post, you pretty much clear the level, but if you cut the tape that's moving up and down, you'll get stars. The higher the tape cut, the more stars you'll earn, and once you hit 100 stars, you'll play a matching bonus game in an effort to win some extra lives. Also, Super Mario World has a save feature, albeit a fairly limited one where you'll be prompted to save your game after clearing a castle level, ghost house, or a switch palace. That alone makes it a better game than Super Mario 3, in which you can actually save your game and not have to beat the whole thing in one sitting. That and checkpoints. Super Mario World also brings back the checkpoints, and a special feature with this checkpoint is that if you cut the tape as Small Mario, you'll automatically be Big Mario, and that'll help you out a bit. And it's also a little more open-ended in that, yeah, you've got split paths here and there, the usual shortcuts that'll get you to Bowser's Castle a lot quicker, or a detour to a special world where you'll tackle 8 of the game's most challenging levels, and you can go back and forth and revisit the levels as many times as you want. Even the fortress levels, which are usually closed off when you clear them, but holding both the left and right triggers while standing on top of the ruins of said castle will let you try that level again, and then you can pick up stuff and toss them upwards. Use the triggers to manipulate the camera so you can see further ahead or behind you. There's even little hint boxes that'll give you little hints on how things work, and so on and so forth. When you compare the 2 games, Super Mario Bros. 3 certainly has more stuff to its credit. Wider variety of power-ups, an inventory system to store your wares, varied world themes for you to travel in. Super Mario World doesn't quite have the level variety thematically. Sure, you have ghost houses that offer a bit of flavor, and there's some unique gimmicks here and there, but it's all different templates for the game's 70 plus levels or so. Despite that though, this feels like a much larger interconnected world. Sure, there's little submaps that you'll pass through, but these are part of a much larger playfield instead of being just isolated kingdoms that you're passing through and quickly forgetting about when headed for the next thing. More importantly, Super Mario World has perhaps the slickest, tightest control that I've come across in a 2D Mario. Taking the sublime controls of Super Mario Bros. 3 and making a few tweaks to take it up a step further. The mere act of running and jumping feels as tight as ever, perhaps more so here. In this regard alone, it's perhaps the best controlling Mario. But then you add little things like the spin jump, which is both a minor addition and a massive game changer at the same time. Outside a couple levels where you needed to break flip blocks underneath, but only if you're Big Mario. It's not something that you need to use, but it is a useful tool and also fairly satisfying, and it doesn't require a massive learning curve. You just press the A button and that's it. Flying and floating has been simplified to where you only need to hold the button down rather than tap it to maintain some kind of whatever, which is a tremendous step above the previous game by a considerable margin. Not to mention using the cape and mastering control of momentum makes it a truly versatile tool. Super Mario World might not have the largest toy box, so to speak, but works with what it has so effectively that it really doesn't matter. And of course, 2 players can take turns as Mario and Luigi, both of whom look and play the same, at least in the original release. In the Super Mario All-Stars re-release, they gave Luigi new sprites and animations, which makes him a little more badass, for lack of a better term, than usual, which is why they didn't keep these for the GBA port. They gave him another set of sprites for that version, so whatever. And while there's no battle mode, the brothers can exchange extra lives, so if you have a bunch to spare and your bro is running a bit short, you could pass some along, or you could just take all of his and leave him with the 1 life remaining and hope for a quick fail so you could continue along your merry way, which is always whatever. The jump from the 8-bit Super Mario Bros. 3 to the 16-bit Super Mario World is somewhat significant, which shouldn't be a surprise. Super Mario World is a much more colorful game. You've got backgrounds in the distances, parallax scrolling, hazards and foes of varying sizes, some neat little transparency and zooming effects. The characters have a bit more life and personality to them, particularly the Koopas when they're knocked out of their shells, and you have moving terrain that didn't come with weird jumbled garbage appearing along the edges or whatever the case may be. Pretty significant stuff, with the only drawback being the occasional bouts of slowdown that would occur whenever things were getting a bit tight, which was a significant weakness with the SNES hardware, unfortunately. The musical cues of Super Mario World. You have a bunch of songs that are just different takes on a singular melody as far as the in-game action bits are concerned, and yet they all sound different and distinct from each other, which is a nice talent to have, is to repurpose the same song into different songs and have them sound different enough that you don't really mind it. Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins on the Game Boy would adopt a similar philosophy in its musical endeavors. Riding Yoshi adds an extra set of drums to these tunes, and honestly it makes the songs better and thus gives you a reason to hang on to Yoshi a little while longer. When it comes to the sound effects, you'll recognize some familiar sound effects, even if they sound slightly different from their NES days, and there's some newer, punchier sound effects to go along with that as well, so that's something, I guess. Super Mario Bros. Established the formula. Super Mario Bros. 2 deviated somewhat. Super Mario Bros. 3 expanded on the concept, and Super Mario World added a polish. And this is why I prefer this over Mario 3. The gameplay and controls are at their most fine-tuned, the level design is balanced and open to different paths, there's some variety in the foes you'll tackle, there's better flight controls, a trusted steed to guide you along the way and will make the ultimate sacrifice when needed, and the ability to save your progress means you could take your sweet-ass time and explore as much of the game as you'd like, and there's plenty of stuff to actually discover here if you're willing to dig deep. These, among many other things, is what makes Super Mario World one of, if not the greatest 2D Mario game ever made. Others have come along later and brought their own thing to the dance, but none of those felt quite as tight or solid as Super Mario World did. It's a case where, again, it might not have the largest toolbox to play with, but it feels like a much bigger deal. It feels like a grand adventure, and sure enough, it plays like one too. A great first impression for a new piece of hardware at the time, and an all-around fantastic game deserving of its status as a timeless classic.